Good Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast presented by Blue Water Climate Control. Be sure and check them out at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com or check them out on Twitter at blueh2o_climate. Blueh2o_climate. You can contact them at 865-299-2290, and we'll tell you more about Blue Water Climate Control a little bit later in the podcast. And as we do each and every week, we thank you and thank them for sponsoring and thank you for joining us. With Rob Lewis, Jesse Simonton, and Austin Price, I'm Brent Hubbs. Let's dive into it, guys, a little bit into, let's start in the recruiting world of things right now. Quickly, anything new on Zach Evans? Let me say this. Don't laugh. I'm surprised we haven't had a rumor every day. Because it was one of those deals he was signing, every day.
There hasn't been a tweet this week about his impending that he's going to sign tomorrow. Or he's going to show
up somewhere tomorrow. It's kind of died down a little
from
bit.
Somebody
Are you surprised it's died down?
No, I'm not surprised it's died down. I'm surprised that there still haven't been rumors though.
I guess that's what I meant by died down.
Yeah, the legitimacy of. All that stuff. How many like media guys last week were, that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. You knew that it wasn't going to happen. Anything that was going to happen until March. The kid wants to take this visit. This whole notion that he may sign some type of financial aid or whatever with Ole Miss or whoever, it just was not correct. And so he's going to continue to train. That's why he's been
boxing.
That's why he's been hanging out with Buck.
Been boxing in Nashville.
Getting ready. And, he'll take the visit in March. And at that point, I do think he'll try to work towards a decision fairly, in swift manner. I don't think he's going to visit the first weekend as soon as it's open and then he's going to come to a decision 2 days later. But I think by second week of April, I think he'll know where he's going to go. All and right. I think there'll be some type of decision.
All right, two questions. One, is the official visit for sure to Florida or somebody else, some other schools? And I know he's all over the map, so it's pure speculation here. Do you think that's going to be Florida for the visit?
I do think it'll be Florida, but I don't discount Oregon.
Okay.
And then who knows who else takes a swing here. I don't think anybody else in this league will take a swing. I think ultimately it might be somebody from outside this league. That goes down that path.
But Florida seems most likely.
Florida seems the most likely for that fifth visit. And, again, if you're Tennessee, would you rather him go to Florida or Ole Miss? I think you'd rather him go to Ole Miss because you play Florida every year. You would have to play Ole Miss his sophomore year maybe.
Yeah, I think that's right. All right, second question. Chances he takes unofficial visits in addition to the official visit. Or do you think it's the official visit, work towards a decision, or is this going to be a guy who you're going to hear about he showed up at practice at Texas A&M, he showed up at Ole Miss's spring practice, showed up at Tennessee's spring practice?
I'm not going to begin to know that.
Okay.
I think that's,
anything's possible?
Anything's possible. Okay. Again, he could decide after he takes the visit to shut it down 2 days later. I don't think that'll be that quick. But with him, you just never know. And he could also, as you said, show up unofficially. If he's going to continue to train in Nashville, he takes the official visit to Florida, how easy is it to roll over to Ole Miss, roll over to Knoxville or wherever for an unofficial visit when you're 2.5, 3 hours away from those schools at the time?
Yeah, so that could be a possibility in the springtime as well. All right, Jesse, you had a piece earlier about Tennessee's needs in this class. Working off, I guess, what are we going to work off now? Are we to the official point? You're going to work off the number 23 that coaches are all going to. I know Jeremy Pruitt wouldn't say that on signing day, but I think we all agree coaches are kind of looking at banking one for possible transfers out there, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Always. You have to in this day and age.
I think I've said it before. I think it's smart.
Yeah.
I think it's good business. You bank one, maybe two each year that for a guy that you believe is going to be able to come in and contribute immediately, and then you fill out your remaining needs. To me, it's pretty clear. I had the piece. I think defensive line. I know they did a nice job, adding some guys this cycle, but you're going to lose 7 veterans after the 2020 season. Some play more than others, but these are a lot of names that Tennessee fans have become or gotten to know, especially after last season with the rotation so deep. So they're going to have to really reload at the defensive line, and that one's going to be interesting because Georgia's a little bit down in terms of prospects in the Peach State at that position in 2021. So you've seen Tennessee really go after North Carolina, but obviously you're going against Clemson and Georgia and Ohio State and some other schools there. AP, it's clear they need a pass rusher, at least 2 in my opinion, maybe 3 at that outside linebacker spot. I think it's kind of dependent on.
They need one now.
They need one now. But in this class, you're going to need, because you're going to lose DeAndre. He's going to be off the roster. No matter what, if Jordan Allen has given you or not given you any snaps, he's a body that technically is on the depth chart there. He will be off the roster.
Which is why you've got to take advantage of the relationships that you've already started to establish, and the guys that have some really hard mutual interest in you, like Damian Robinson, like Travali Price.
Any relation?
No, not to my knowledge.
And what do you see a guy like Junior Colson?
Yeah.
Jeremiah Williams. I mean, they've actually done a nice job at that spot. Dylan Brooks, I think, counts for that. But I think he's going to end up at Alabama or Auburn. But they've gotten him on campus a million times.
You've got a solid group of guys that have some interest in you.
For sure.
And you've got to close. I think what you're saying, I didn't mean to interrupt you, is their board at that position right now looks deeper than it's looked the last couple of years.
Yes.
Even in the early part. I mean, I know they got a bunch of good kids on campus last year for unofficial visits and during the springtime, but they didn't get a ton of, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't get a ton of edge guys in. That was not a position of strength and numbers that they got on campus.
Or they never had. I mean, I put this in the piece. There was tons of guys they never had any traction with. The Tim Williamses and Mikel Shermans. Those guys went off to major programs. They hosted Karat Williams for an official visit, but I mean, like, he never seriously considered Tennessee. That was all. He was an Ohio State lean. Zarkevius Walker, Philip Webb. Other guys that ended up in the SEC. To AP's point, I mean, they have gotten that board is fairly long right now at that spot, and they need to take advantage. Whether it's, again, in-state with Junior Colson or out-of-state, when some of the surrounding hotbeds, around Tennessee.
And back to the defensive line, Pennington is huge. When you talk about, 7 guys leaving, this state a year ago was deep in big bodies. This class not
Very
deep
thin.
in big bodies.
It seems like there's a real rotation on that. I mean, like, you go back to 17.
Cycles.
It was Amari, T. Skill guys. Kid that went to LSU from Oakland, Jacoby Stevens, a lot of skill guys. Then 18, you had Cade, the lineman across the state. Now, granted, some of those guys flamed out, but I mean, the point is there was a lot of big bodies. Emerson, and of course, I talked about the Lineker flamed out. And then
Albina's played for Memphis.
And there's another big body. Then you go to 19, skill again. 20, big bodies. Now back to 21, we're back to more skill. And just there are a couple of big bodies like William Griffin, and of course, as you said, Diedrich Pennington. But
two priorities for Tennessee.
Yeah, but
Javon Nelson.
There's not like this. Yeah, Javon Nelson's another one. But there's not a whole list. Like this past year, man, look how many
That was like 6 or 7. Tennessee did well and didn't take everybody in state.
You landed Tyler Barron. You landed Omari Thomas. You landed Cooper Mays. You landed some bigger bodies in this class.
And then
you lost out on Jay Hardy. Ripka went to Kentucky.
Tuck went to Clemson. The dude who went to A&M.
But another big body. Yeah, I mean,
kid who went to A&M.
Yeah, the kid who went to A&M, Dallas Walker.
Yeah.
So, I mean, given that it's a lighter year, I mean, Griffin and Pennington are huge priorities.
Yeah,
for
because
Tennessee.
You've got to take advantage of the kids that are in your state.
And you've worked really hard on your relationships in the state. You had a good year last year in state. You've got to continue to build on that. So those two guys are real priorities. What do you think is the other priority? I mean, obviously defensive line. When you talk about the offensive side of the ball, Jesse, I mean, they took a bunch of receivers in this class. I think you take a stud running back every year if you can get one of those. So I always think that's a given.
But I think that I think that needs to be highlighted. That's what they it's time for, if Tennessee's really going to ascend. That's kind of one of the next steps that needs to happen.
That's
on the recruiting
100%
trail.
what I think.
On the offensive side,
right? Like you say, I mean, that's a no-brainer every year, but
you got to start signing.
But they haven't got that war daddy, if you will.
You've got to get Cody Brown, Travion Henderson. You've got to get one of these guys that you've been able to get to campus. Henderson was here in November for a game. He's going to be a dogfight out of, the 38th offer, AG, 2G or whatever.
How long has it been since Tennessee's had a stud NFL running back? Not a guy that played in the NFL, a fringe guy. I mean, a stud NFL.
Well, but I mean, Hurd would have been to me. I mean, but he almost became
head case.
Yeah,
not a stud NFL running back.
No, he didn't turn out to be. But,
Alvin.
But in terms of going and getting
a top end guy, Hurd was a top end guy.
Yeah, I mean,
he was a 5-star.
Yeah, totally he was. But
he was.
And almost became your career rushing leader in 2 years and 7 or 8 games. Yeah. I mean,
and Tennessee was 5-0 and ranked in the top 10.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would
before
be,
he lost his mind.
I put this in the piece. I think part of the reason it's so imperative that Tennessee lands a stud in 21 is that hypothetically, what if Eric Gray is the guy that was played like he was the last 2 games of the season? He's looking pretty damn good, but he'll be a junior in 2021 when that person rolls in, and if he's as good as Tennessee fans and Tennessee staff hope he's going to be, that's his last season in Knoxville.
Yeah, because he's an older anyways. I mean, he was an older kid when he got.
But it is if you're worth.
If you're a running back and you can go after year 3,
you bolt.
There's no reason you can't stay.
And so and that's why I think it's even more imperative that they land a quote unquote dude.
And Alvin was a dude, and Butch didn't know it. Apparently.
Couldn't see past the gold grill right in front of his face.
Couldn't see past whatever promise he made to San Francisco's wide receiver that didn't play this year.
What's amazing about that is they didn't play both of them together. I think that's the thing that's crazy. In this day and age where it's about, and I don't want to go down that revision history road, but in this day and age where it's get your playmakers, get those guys on the field, not playing those two on the field at the same time is. And
for the same reason, I think corner is a huge need in this.
Because of where Alontae's going to be, where Bryce Thompson's going to be in terms of
you're going to lose
age.
Kenneth George. You're going to lose Schamberger. These are guys that play.
Well, and look, where's Burrell after after year 1? I mean, he will be further down, but I mean. Where's he at? How good do we think he really can be or will be in this program?
And you already sort of moved Fields to safety. That was a guy that was technically came in as a corner, but you already moved.
What's Kenny Solomon become? I mean, you'll have some depth questions there. I mean, that's the thing that you learn about college football. Every time you think you're deep, then you blink and you're not deep at that spot anymore. That's why you got to.
Keep
that's
cycling
why the
through.
Cycle is recruit well every year. You can't recruit, have a great year and a down year. You've got to have.
The offensive line, this is going to be a purported strength, and it should be a strength for Tennessee this season. And yet, if Cade Mays gets the waiver, the likelihood is he plays 1 season in Knoxville. Trey comes off the board. You lose your starting center, and your 2 blue chip offensive linemen are going into their junior year. So, you blink and it happens quickly.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's that's the challenge. That's why recruiting is a lifeblood, and why it's so important for Tennessee. I know that they can't, kids can't be on campus, Austin, and coaches can't be on the road, obviously, or anything like that. But it does sound like Jay Graham and some of these guys are hitting the ground running in terms of contacts with kids and visiting with kids and talking to kids and building there. And I'm talking about Shelton Felton and some of these guys, Joe Osavat, these newer guys on there. Sounds like Jay's done quite a bit of work, I guess, in North Carolina already, just in terms of hey, I'm Jay Graham, I'll be to see you as soon as they let me back out on the road.
And also coaches in general are trying to get kids in here for the March 7th Tennessee basketball game. Is that the Auburn game, Rob? I believe that is last Saturday, the Auburn game.
Regular season.
They're going to try to have a big junior day that day because
Vols could use them.
Yeah,
in the stands or
in
on
the
the
stands.
court.
Maybe on the court.
Go ahead.
Malachi Wideman showing up early. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these coaches are trying to work towards getting these kids in here for that weekend. Jay's trying to get a lot of kids in here from the state of North Carolina, and we know how important that state is. So. I think it's wise on everybody's part to try to make that as big of an event as you can and try to get the best players in here as you can, because it will be a really good atmosphere as Bruce rolls in here for the final regular season game, and it'll be senior day. They didn't have any seniors. I don't think they have any seniors.
They've got Jordan Bowden.
Oh, that's right.
You got to do something with Jordan Bowden.
That's right. Look, we'll get to him in a minute. But he's kind of rebounded.
Jacob, you gonna do Jacob Fleshman like that?
Sorry.
Come on,
you used to do boy Bowden like
he should have.
I can't. You just back to
He's
truck.
your guy. Jordan, how many times you have him on High School Heroes?
All right, so
too many.
So let's go back here a little bit. So you got Jay Graham working North Carolina.
And here's the other thing: they kind of repositioned shifted some areas. So
Well, that's where I was going to go next. So go ahead.
Like in Memphis now, I think DA will kind of be in there in spot duty, but I think you'll see Teef swing over to Memphis more and be the area recruiter there. I think Brian Niedermeyer will be in the state of Tennessee more. T will still have Nashville.
Who's going to get Chattanooga?
I think that'll be Niedermeyer. I think he'll
really?
get Scherer's old
Over
territory.
Shelton Felton?
Yes, I think that's.
And Felton's going to get.
I think he's
South
going to
Georgia.
get South Georgia.
I don't know that I'll ever call him Coach Felton. He may just always be Shelton Felton.
It sounds too good.
He just may always be
sounds
Shelton
too
Felton.
good.
So you think he's going to get Georgia, a bigger hand, mostly Georgia, right?
Yes, I do. And then
Jay will get South Carolina and North Carolina
No, I think
and Virginia?
No, I think Jay's going to get most of North Carolina. Winky will still be in Charlotte, some Drake May and such, and then Virginia.
Okay, wow. I didn't know if that, Jay having some days in South Carolina, if he was going to work some in the state of South Carolina too.
Yeah,
I mean,
and he may. I just don't
right.
know that.
Yeah, I don't know that. And I don't know where Jimmy Brumbaugh is going to go. I don't know where his area that he's recruited the most when he was at Kentucky.
Another Alabama boy.
Jimmy Brumbaugh and Shelton Felton, man. That's two great names.
And then on the recruiting side of things, in terms of with the departure of Drew Hughes, anything there?
As far as who's going to replace him?
Yeah, or just how you think they're going to structure things?
I would venture to say that Danny Stiff, who was the number 2 under Drew, takes a greater significant role. So I would venture to say that Danny has a good chance to be promoted, and then they hire someone to help him into that role. Danny's the kind of guy that's rose up the ranks, and is a guy that's a big
Are you
film
not in the
guy.
mix?
I'm not in the mix.
Consulting.
We need to shoot that one.
Consulting
We need
line.
to shoot that one down.
AP doesn't grind enough tape for that.
We need to shoot that one down.
Austin's too valuable out there playing that Uncle Roy.
What about Paul Fortenberry? Any chance Jeremy brings him home?
No, I don't think any chance Paul comes back. Paul's too busy over there at Clayton and hanging out,
Shout out.
taking the private jet.
Shout out to the Beast.
Doing whatever he wants to do. All right, let's jump to the football team. This week has been coaches, the morning workouts and everything else. It's really, for a lot of guys, Rob, this week's about getting to know your new guy. I mean, all these defensive linemen found out on Monday that they got a new coach that they're that's going to be coaching them, and same for outside linebackers. And so this is really the first week that these coaches, even Niedermeyer and those guys, have had a chance to work with the guys in front of them. They cannot work with the football, but they can be out there in the winter workout stuff. And I keep looking at it with the guy like Quavarius Crouch out, J.J. Peterson. I don't want to say you're on the clock, but you've never had a greater opportunity.
You got to think it's now or never, right?
This is the best opportunity he's had.
He's going to have all the reps he can stand in spring practice. The freshman year was just a wash. He showed up late and he was very obviously not in shape. But with the depth problems last year, the fact that he couldn't carve out a little niche for himself, that started flashing the warning signals. But so now, again, if he doesn't make a name for himself in spring and leave the impression with the coaching staff that he can help, I don't want.
Yeah, he's a guy.
I don't want to push the panic.
He's
button.
a guy you don't want to. You may not want to put too much on his plate, but when he was a recruit, he was talked about as being this Jeremy's favorite, 4x4 linebacker, a guy who could play all 4 positions, all 4 downs. With Tennessee's just utter lack of options, or at least desirable options at outside linebacker, if the light doesn't turn on at some point, I would put him outside and say, go get him.
See ball, hit ball.
Yeah.
Stick it a little bit. I think how he does.
And he's not prototypical, but neither is Crouch necessarily,
Right.
for that spot.
Or Roman Harrison.
Or Roman
Harrison.
From a body type. So, big spring
Just
for
throwing
him.
that out there. Just kind of an idea.
Huge opportunity for him. I think it's a huge opportunity for Jameer Johnson. We talked about that a little bit on the podcast. Give me somebody else that maybe it's not just about huge opportunity. Give me somebody else that's going to generate some buzz here between now and the start of spring. That everybody's, now that coaches have been with him for a week or two, we're going to start to hear, you'll start to leak out, who's having a good winter, who they like, this, that, the other.
We've talked about him, and I think because of the position, the needs there, I think D'Angelo Gibbs is going to be a guy that, I don't know if he's going to generate buzz, but I'm saying that's a guy that's going to have a chance to be a dude.
That's the guy on offense everybody's going to want to see. That's going to want to see. Anybody else you think that at the end of this month everybody's going to be kind of like, hey, he's really, You know, he's really
I don't
turned.
think
the
you really
corner here.
know until you get to spring anyway. I mean,
Do you think we all feel this way because there's so many times that there's been guys, and not by
Pull
this
the
staff,
wool over your eyes?
but even by previous staffs, there's been talked about, hey, this guy's done this guy's done that.
because, I mean,
and
like-
then all of a sudden there's nothing there.
Sure.
Well, to that point, I mean, I do, and this kid has flash, but he hasn't stayed healthy. I think this is a big spring for Flowers.
Sure.
There's a safety job opening, because I don't think that you can just pencil in Theo automatically for that job. Theo's a candidate for sure.
I don't think he is. I really don't. I think Theo's a backup, and that's what he is.
Okay, but I mean, like, he's going to play. Like, these guys can poo-poo on him behind the scenes, and he still plays 35 snaps a game.
I mean, because your numbers, he's got to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least he has. I mean, if Tyus Fields ascends, you know,
I think
we'll
the one
see.
that's going to be back there by the fact that he knows the defense and has continued to grow is Jalen McCullough.
But I'm already penciling him in. I'm saying who takes Nigel's spot, because McCullough started the last 2 games of the season.
Yeah.
But I think Flowers is a guy that this staff and Jeremy likes personally. Can he kind of put it together? You know, he's had 2 years where injuries have kind of beset him a little bit. You know, that what's his next stage of development?
Yeah, and again, I think all of us are kind of like, let's see some guys. You know what I mean? It's like everybody wants, and I'm not knocking anybody on the GQ or any fan out there about Harrison Bailey, but let's see it. Like before.
Yeah, I mean, like,
you know what I mean? I mean, it's just one of those things that I think in particular because of the last 10 years, I could rattle off, and I'm not going to do it because I don't want to rip on a bunch of kids, but I could rattle off 10 easy names of guys who were supposed to be the next this, that, or the other. They generated all this summer buzz or all this winter buzz, and then they go, yeah.
No offense to Jonathan Kongbo.
You know, and it's just you know, it doesn't happen. So.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, we've held Aiden.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and again, that's why I'm hesitant about it, because I have talked up guys that have not turned.
well,
Well,
And
I think it's going to be a huge spring for a guy like Jerome Carvin, who was considered buried by this staff, and then he comes back, ends up starting the last however many games of the season. Now everyone's written him off, saying Cade's taking his spot, and you're not going to come get it. You know, let's see if Jerome may hold his spot.
He is the. I don't want to say that this is going to happen, because no one has ever said this to me. This is just my personal take, having seen all this for years. Jerome Carvin seems like the perfect candidate for if things go the way Tennessee hopes they go, with Cade wins an appeal and plays the way they hope him to play, Trey, that Jerome Carvin's a possibility. If they get 3 or 4 games in and he ain't playing a whole lot, they shut him down, because they do think about the fact that Cade's a one and done if he's playing, and Trey, you know what I'm saying? I mean, to me, that makes sense to me. And a minute ago, I wasn't, poo-pooing on Theo Jackson.
No, I know.
I've got to see him be
more
a player.
consistent.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
he don't make enough plays, and
Yeah.
so I think Flowers is a better athlete. So I just think eventually, athleticism takes over.
But the problem is Flowers never made it through 4 games healthy.
Correct. There you go.
You know,
so
I mean, that's the thing.
McCullough and Theo were very similar to me as far as they're smart type guys. McCullough's probably a little better athlete than Theo, in my opinion. Especially in run support.
Yeah, I mean, how they use their safeties, how they grow in year 2. I mean, those are all
The name
questions.
you asked about names. The name that, of course, we've not seen enough, but he's flashed enough for me to think that he could really jump as Ramel. I'm a huge fan of that kid. So
I'm going to be curious to see when
He's
you talk.
certainly going to have plenty of opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing that's going to be really interesting with him too, I'm glad you brought him up, is when you talk about guys whose bodies are going to change, I think Ramel Keaton could look vastly different physically over the course of the next 4 or 5 months compared to what he did, because I think that's a guy who could put on 15 or 20 pounds of good weight very easily and become a much more physical guy, because he's kind of a thinner guy. I think
he's shredded though for his size.
I think what he adds, how much muscle mass, how much bigger he gets, and Fitzgerald's strength and conditioning deal is going to be really interesting. And hey, looking at it, you're going to have a piece on it coming up about the wide receiver stuff. I didn't dive into it, but in the red zone story I did, you look at it, 10 touchdowns thrown in the red zone.
To Jennings and Callaway.
Jennings and Callaway caught 8 of the 10.
What?
DWA had 1.
So that's 9.
And
Palmer had
one.
Kentucky.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
9 of your 10 are gone.
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking about production areas, and again, I mentioned this in the piece. I think that when you talk about this offense and how it grows from year one to year two, to me, it's all about they got to be better in the red zone. They were not very good in the red zone. They left a lot of points on the field. They were not a very good passing team in the red zone. They were not very good running team. They had as many negative yard rushing plays in the red zone really as they did anywhere else on the field all season long. So that's a key element for the entire offense this spring. We'll have more content items like that coming up in the coming weeks to get you ready for spring practice as well. Hey, by the way, now's the time. If you're a homeowner, you turn your air conditioner on one day, then you turn your heat on the next day. It's cold today. It'll be sunny again, so your furnace and your air conditioning unit has got all kinds of stuff going on. Here's a chance for you to take advantage of what Blue Water Climate Control can do for you and get a tune-up. And just make sure you don't have any issues, you don't have any problems. They do a $79 safety inspection tune-up. If they find a problem, they can fix it immediately for you. They'll guarantee through the month of March, they'll give you a discounted rate if there's something that breaks after the tune-up. So if you got something going on with your heating unit or you're not sure, and again, we're in that time of year where it's air conditioned one day, heater the next day, you need to get your system checked, and you need to get them checked by Blue Water Climate Control. Give them a call at 865-299-2290. That's Blue Water Climate Control at 299-2290, or you can visit them online at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com or on Twitter at blueh2o_climate. I know many people have already taken advantage of what they've got going on in this month or in the month of March. Before the end of March, you need to take advantage of that as well. Make sure your system is in good shape and up to date with everything with a tune-up. All right, speaking of tuning up, the basketball team doesn't need a tune-up. They need to rev it up. They got to go at breakneck speed here, Rob. When you look at this schedule, they pick up the win over Arkansas. Everybody's got Vescovi being the next All-American type
Pete Maravich.
They got him going to the draft.
Pete Maravich.
But that was a much-needed win over a team that's struggling in Arkansas. I don't want to take anything away from what Tennessee did, but the challenges are getting ready to get great, and it starts tomorrow at South Carolina with a Gamecock team that's playing a lot better, and they've been good at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think since they're the most improved team in the league over the last month, I think. I mean, some people might say Mississippi State, but they've trailed off a little bit with a couple losses here lately, most recently to Ole Miss. And, yeah, talking to Coach Barnes on Thursday, really impressed with South Carolina, with what they've done, how much better they've gotten offensively. Got some freshman guards that is kind of clicking for a little bit. So, I mean, I think that's going to be a really tough game for Tennessee. Just, I thought Tennessee played their best game probably in the year, Tuesday night against Arkansas, but I don't know. I mean, I don't mean to be too skeptical, but I just think it's going to be really tough. South Carolina is going to have revenge on their minds. They are, playing really well.
And they play better at home than they have on the road.
Yeah,
most teams
it just blew Georgia out on the road.
On the road.
Yeah.
On Wednesday night. I mean, blew them out.
Who can figure Georgia out? What a train wreck
I think they're easy to figure out. They're not very good.
Because yet they somehow beat Tennessee like a drum.
Like, waxed them.
Yeah. I mean, they've got a great player and don't have anything else going on.
2-9.
2-9?
2-9. What's gotten Bowden out of the slump a little bit? 9 straight games with double digits. He's averaging 15.4 in his last 5.
I mean, I wouldn't really say he's necessarily out of the slump. I mean, he's still not shooting it great. He's 2 of 7.
Is he just finding different ways
He's fine. He's getting to the rim more. He's getting to the foul line more, but his shooting stroke is still not there. I mean, he was 2 of 7 from 3 against Arkansas, and that's the first time. I mean, that 2 of 7 is not great, but that's the first time he's made more than 1 3-pointer in a game since Missouri, back on the second conference game of the year. So, but I think he's, like you say, I think he's just figuring out ways to score without hitting from outside. But it's still not still not ideal. I thought the interesting thing the other night, and I think I'll be interested to see if Rick does it, because I think it was because of Arkansas' size, but when Jalen Johnson in the starting lineup for the first time, but I think that's all about getting Eves inside, because he's clearly much better, more comfortable down there.
Well, size-wise, I know Arkansas was small, but I mean, they should be able to match up against South Carolina with Eves at the 4.
And they can with most teams. I
Right.
think. Well, I mean, the way Eves plays down there, I mean, mean, even if he gets away 3 or 4 inches, I mean, he's leading the SEC in block shots.
Yeah, I just think that I think that's home for him.
I agree.
I think you get him out into. I mean, the biggest thing that shows up with Eves when he's playing the 3 is he gives up so much dribble penetration.
He can't handle the ball.
Yeah, and when he can't handle the ball offensively and defensively, he has a hard time keeping people in front of him.
Yes.
Whereas when he's playing the 4, he can play more help defense unless somebody's straight
And he's so
posting
strong,
him up.
even if he's giving away a couple inches.
And he can block shots
he's not,
that way.
He's not getting pushed around.
Yeah, I think you neutralize his shot blocking ability when you take him out and play him at the 3
Agree.
quite a bit.
And getting off the East, I thought the best thing from Tuesday night was that Rick showed some trust and had his trust rewarded. The 2 freshmen, Camwa and Devontae, both gave them some really productive minutes. And if they're going to have a chance, a snowball's chance in these last 3 weeks of making the tournament, both those kids are going to have to be, big pieces of the puzzle. I mean, they don't have to score a bunch of points. I mean, even though Olivier had 10, but they've got to be able to give guys some breaks.
Yeah, I mean, Gaines is one of those deals. I mean, wherever he goes quickly and he goes really hard. You're just not real sure where it's going to go at times. But I mean, defensively, a couple cheap fouls here and there. Those are going to be givens.
But
with
he
him.
locked Mason Jones down. I mean,
but he doesn't need to handle the ball very much.
No,
That's
he does
not
not.
where he's at right
but,
now.
I mean, Mason
but
Jones,
defensively, he's really good.
Mason Jones is the leading scorer in the SEC, and Devontae put it on him.
Don't you think that the thing that helped there with that is that basically it looked like they looked at Devontae Gaines and said, don't let him score, and took away a little bit of some of maybe the help stuff and almost simplified the defense a little bit. I'm not saying it was a box at 1 or anything crazy like that, but his focal point was clearly on stopping the score and a little less on the help and everything else.
They switched. Because they were playing small, they switched everything.
Right.
Except for Fulke. They switched 1 through 4 on Jones.
So it simplified a little bit.
Yeah, and but don't take nothing away from Devontae.
I'm not on the defensive end. I'm not. I mean,
he was really good, and I think that was a big confidence booster for him and Camwa.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Vescovi. And all joking aside, obviously he's not going to be the player of the year in the conference, as somebody suggested, if he plays this way the rest of the year. You've talked about it for a couple of weeks. Coach Barnes has talked about it. Just how remarkable it is on what he's accomplished in such a short time.
I think it's fantastic.
How much, as you've seen him play every game in person and you see him in practice week to week, how much does it look like the game is slowing down for him?
I don't know if slowing down is kind of a catchphrase that you use when this kind of stuff. I think he's just getting used to the kind of athleticism and length that he's seeing. Not to say, he's played against some good competition, but not 2 times a week, for 30 plus minutes a game like he's seeing right now. I think he's getting used to it. And I thought where you really saw his growth the other night, and Rick talked about it a little bit post game, is the way he drove the basketball. Because now he's played 10 games. Everybody in this league now knows that he can. If you don't get out on him, he's going to knock it down more often than not. So they're crowding him, and he took advantage of him. He drove to the bucket, 5-6 times the other night. Got 2 or 3 layups, dished it to Eves for a couple of dunks, and that wasn't something he was doing 3-4 games ago. He's getting he's still he'll get deep and throw it back over his head every once in a while and give it away.
Leaves his feet.
But he
too many passes.
He just had 3 turnovers the other night with 8 assists. It's just getting so much better. And it's just remarkable. I've never seen anything like it. A kid that got dropped in. I bet you he still doesn't know half the stuff they're doing. Rick told me the other day that they'll come out of timeout sometimes, and Rick will have told everybody what to do, and then Santiago will hang back for a minute and say, all right, coach, now exactly what do you want me to do right here? It's like a couple of times a game, when they come up with a dead ball.
Okay, I see that, but what is exactly my job?
No, exactly what do you want me to do? I bet he doesn't know half the playbook right now.
Right.
It's I don't think you could say enough about it.
What do you think his upside is?
I think he can be an all-conference player. I really do. I tell you who he reminds me. This is not a perfect comparison. All these people are talking about Manu Ginobili. He's not that good of an athlete. How many times you see Manu Ginobili drive down the lane? Jesse, you watch a lot
and
of
hammer it
hammer it home on somebody. That's not. He reminds
or get hammered and still throw one up.
He reminds me of Alex Caruso a little bit from Texas A&M a few years ago. Who's had he's played in the NBA for several years. Nice. I think Santiago was probably a better shooter than Caruso was, but just a heady, real savvy player. I think his ceiling's is an all-conference player. Yeah, first team All SEC.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he blends in and how. And I don't want to skip past what this team has in front of them the next few weeks. But when you drop him in, and now that you've seen him and you know what Keon Johnson does, and you know what you've got with all these parts coming back, how that backcourt looks and how you can play off of each other.
A lot of fun to watch.
Going to be really interesting to watch them play. But
I mean, Keon Johnson, for people, I mean, Yves Pons is a big time athlete. Keon Johnson is just about that level of athlete and a basketball player.
Yeah,
people are going to like that.
Yeah, they're going to be a very different, very entertaining basketball team a year from now. But before that, they've got plenty of basketball in front of them. Starting
have a chance
with South Carolina, and then everything's in front of them. Now, can they take advantage of it against the competition that's coming? I got no idea. I wouldn't think so, but everything is in front of them considering who they have left to play on this schedule.
4 games
against
stretch here. Kentucky, Auburn, Florida. They got to go 2-2.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. The question is, can they pull off a minimal of 2-2, which will not be easy against that stretch of competition that they're going to play. But we'll find out. We'll start with South Carolina in a big game on the road for Tennessee tomorrow. We'll have full coverage of that. But that's going to do it for the Blue Water Climate Control Podcast. For Jesse Simonton, Austin Price, and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend, everybody.